genius of the mind. So many stories to unwind.
Welcome to the Writer's Bog. So you decided you're going to write a story. You have an idea that you like so much, you're considering sacrificing countless hours to make this thing the best it can be. Good, you should. But there's a step that comes before you start writing, which most people don't talk about. Luckily for you, I'm here to save the day. Or possibly ruin it. Or maybe both. We'll see. Fair warning before we get too far, there are going to be a lot of clarifications in this video, and there are also going to be a lot of topics I talk about in a general way or don't go too in-depth on. That's because the point of this video is to be more of an overview, but an important one. I plan on making more in-depth videos about these individual topics in the future. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. There are a lot of people out there with a lot of advice on how to write a story. Problem is, most of them skip over an important step that you need to know before you even start the first page. You need to learn the mindset. Now, there's some bad news about the mindset and some good news. We'll start with the bad news first. The bad news is you have to ask yourself a very tough question. How important is this to you? How important is your own story to you? Because writing a story is a big commitment. If you're just writing for fun or you want to try it out, that's fine. Not everyone who sits down to write something has to plan on being the next Shakespeare. But you better be 100% honest with yourself. Are you willing to sacrifice blood, sweat, and tears and countless hours to the void to write this story? If not, that's fine, but it's better to decide that now rather than giving up in 4 years when you've already wasted countless hours, sacrificed other opportunities, and poured all your energy into a book that'll never see the light of day. It's a big commitment. Success is not guaranteed, but if you quit, failure is. The difference between people who never succeed and those who do isn't that the successful never failed. It's that they failed 1,000 times like everyone else, then became one of the lucky few who succeeded. There's your mindset. Accept the difficulty, know the odds, and fight against them anyway. Welcome to the good news part. Part of learning to write is learning what works for you. Everyone writes differently. No one is going to give you a step-by-step guide to writing a story that works for you entirely. At least, it's not going to happen for 99.9% of people. But finding out how you write is half the fun. Look up advice. Look up a lot of advice. Look up advice from authors you love and from authors you don't know, and try everything. Give everything an honest go. Outlining sound like fun? Go ahead and outline. Want to bullet point every scene in your outline? Do it. Would you rather just have a vague sentence explaining the gist of each chapter instead? Good news, you can do that too. Or you can throw the whole idea of outlining into the recycle bin and just discover you write. Are you writing a story that has a world you think is cool? Then build the world before you write the story. Do you have an idea for a character that you love and you could give less of a shit about the world around them? Then start with your character and go from there. Experiment. Try everything at least once. And another point, just because something doesn't work for one story doesn't mean it won't work for another. You can discovery write one book and outline another. You can outline one book a certain way and outline another completely differently. You don't have to write every book the same way, so it's good to keep all this advice in your back pocket if you can. But experimenting actually goes beyond just the methods of building a story. Do you write better at home or in a coffee shop? Does listening to music help you focus, or does it distract you? Do you write your best stuff if you start the second you wake up, or is it more engaging to do it right before you go to bed? Explore, have fun, find out what works for you. And if anyone tells you never do this or never do that, take it with a grain of salt. A lot of people view the way that they write as the only way to write, which most of the time isn't true. But as with everything, there are a few caveats. Things that I call writer traps, because I don't know what the fuck else to call them. I'm not going to go in depth on any of these writer traps in this video. I'm going to list them out for you here, and if you want more details, ask me and I'll tell you later. Patience is a virtue. And if you want to write a book, patience is also a necessity. Anyway, there's a list of new writer traps that I'm going to tell you now that you should avoid when you just start out. Thank me later. Or now if you want. First one, understand the point of the first draft. You're not going to write a polished book in one pass. Your first draft only exists to get the idea out of your head and onto your page. So don't write your first draft for other people, write it for you. If your first draft isn't an incomprehensible mess, odds are you're doing it wrong. Don't get stuck making major changes or edits to your first draft before you finish writing it. Otherwise, you're never going to finish in the first place. Don't censor yourself in your first draft. Worrying about that will distract you way too much. You can always cut shit out later. Don't be afraid to meander through your first draft and go off on tangents. If you like it, keep it. If not, at least you tried. Don't think you know everything about writing a story. You don't, I don't, no one does. Look up advice, try things, and be open to learning. If you can't let yourself learn, you're fucked from the beginning. If you write something that requires world building, which every story does, but this is more for fantasy and sci-fi writers and the like, don't let yourself get too sucked into the world building. I know writers who've spent 20 years building a world for their story, and they haven't written the story yet. Just write what you need for now, and if you need more, you can always add it later. And I think that's enough for one day. Thank you for listening. The next few videos will revolve around expanding a bit more on some of the points in this video and writing a first draft. Hope to see you there.